Is that better? All right. All right, so Jeff will troubleshoot, and I will just keep talking. I mean, I can hear it a little more. Okay, so hi. I'll start again. Hi, I'm Jennifer Vanette. I am the outreach coordinator here at the Castle Museum, and you can see it's been a day. So I'm excited to be here with you to be able to host these Lunch and Learn series. I'm excited about today's speaker, but before we jump into that, I'll do a couple of housekeeping reminders, and that is please feel free at any point to help yourself to some treats on the back table. It looks like we have a couple varieties of little mini donuts today. And then if you need a restroom, there is one just outside of that back door. So you don't have to go very far if you just go there and then to your right. And I do like to give you a little heads up. So we have a lot going on this week. Tomorrow we have the midweek matinee, which will be the part 2 of the one from last month. So if you came last month, you might want to come this month. So that's at 1 o'clock, and then then there's a bunch of kids stuff. Do y'all want to know about the kids stuff? There is going to be a summer kickoff on Saturday for our kids programming. So a kid at heart or some kids in your lives, bring them on down for lots of activities in partnership with Hoyt Library and Delta Learning. I think Reed is going to have a table. There's a lot going on, a lot of community partners coming together to just do a fun kickoff. And then next week, the next speaker kind of series is History After Hours on June 20th. That's our evening program. Archaeologist Jeff Summer will talk about his progress at a Tittabawassee Boom Company site, or boarding house site. And then our next Lunch and Learn, remember these are always second and fourth Tuesdays, so our next one will be a special Snacks and Artifacts edition where we bring things out of the collection, and it's wedding season, so Sandy Schwann is going to bring out some wedding dresses and things. So lots still on our summer calendar, and I hope you're able to join us for other events, but today I'm very happy to welcome Lynda Thayer from the Thomas Township Nature Center and Preserve, which I have set up. This is like by popular, I mean, our people are already clapping. I haven't even finished introducing, but this has been popular demand, just so you know. Oh, well, you know, we all have to have our cheering sections, but truly this was requested. So but she tells me she's going to do a bigger part of introduction for herself, so I'm going to leave it there and just hand it over. So thank you for coming.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Oftentimes when I present on this topic, I get like maybe 15, 20 minutes, and I always say I can talk for hours about this, and I think I'm going to be closer to an hour this time, so we'll see if I can fill in your time with some interesting information. But obviously, I'm sure we have all kinds of questions about things, so we'll get going. First thing of who am I? Well, that's me, like working. That's me, like cleaned up and kind of nice. And then my family. The top picture is my husband is Mike Thayer. He was an athletic director at Bay City Western. He retired, and now he works at the art museum as a weeder in the garden, and he also works at the temple doing security and such. So we're living our retirement dreams. This is my retirement job as well. I decided I was going to retire in 2019. I was going to retire in the 2020 school year, and we know how that school year ended up. So it was a perfect time to retire, actually. So life was pretty good. I found a magnet that said leap and the net will appear, so I decided to make that leap. And then I knew the Nature Center and Preserve project was coming on, so I found a job application for Thomas Township, and I sent it in, and I said I'd love to help whoever's in charge of the Nature Center and Preserve, and they're like, let me think, how about you do all of this? So the job at that point was described, and it played out exactly what they said, that the first part would be doing the grant writing and the fundraising, getting all the money in line, and doing plans. And then the second phase was overseeing the rehabilitation of the building. And then the third phase was to get it up and running. And that's where we're at now. Out of all the phases, this one is my favorite. The construction one was pretty hilarious because I was in charge of writing the bids and such, and I don't know very much about that. So it was definitely trial by fire, but I did it. But I am not by myself. I have two lovely daughters. One is engaged, one is married, and then there's my grandpuppy Rocky, who lives out in Oregon, and I'm going to see him this weekend, so life is good. But it's not just me, it's our whole team. So with Thomas Township, probably the biggest supporter that we've had is Russ Taylor, our township manager, and Bob Weesey, who's been a supervisor. And then from there, our park team, we have Dieter Frollo, who is now in Russ's position as manager. John Corvo is my direct boss from the parks. Tyler Sutherland is his assistant director. And then we have our Thomas Township Board, our Parks Commission, and then I have an advisory committee, and then a lot of Thomas Township employees that's also helped out. For full disclosure, I should also mention that my husband is the township clerk, and when I got hired, he was a trustee, and my dad, who is also in the audience, was clerk. But I swear I got the job on my own. I swear. It wasn't just them. So where are we located? I'm assuming that some of you guys are here because you're interested in the topic, and some of you just come to these and learn new things. So this is where we're located. So we are here right now. If you went out and then got onto 46 and headed towards the Shields area, we are right past the river. So this is the M46, 47 interchange, and then you go past the river, we are right there. And if you keep on going, you get to Meyer, which is probably why a lot of you guys make it out to the Shields area, maybe. I don't know, but that's where we are located. Take you 13 minutes to get there from here. So part of what I wanted to share is information about the property that relates, about Shields that relates to the property that we have been working on. So back in the day, we had the Native American influence, the Ojibwe or Chippewa, and in the Shields area, one of the biggest villages that they excavated, Fraser Village, was actually in the property. And my dad has a fun story about this. Like back in the day, he was the principal at Shields Junior High, and the superintendent was on vacation. So Dad stepped up to cover the superintendent for a couple of weeks when Shields Elementary work was being done there. And as the work was being done, that's when they found some additional things. So the job site had to be halted so that they could do additional excavation. And the superintendent came back, and obviously no work had been done that was supposed to get done. And the superintendent was like, "What happened when I was gone?" My dad's like, "I had nothing to do with it." But that happened there. The Shields area was named after a couple brothers named Arthur and William.
Did they find bear bones at one time over there?
I have no idea on that. Yeah, so what information I have, I found from a few resources from Thomas Township, and I'm sure there's sources that could go way deeper into a lot of those things and what was found there, but that's not me. Arthur and William Shields are brothers. They're bachelors, and they are both buried at Owen Cemetery, which is in Thomas Township. We actually found their grave once, but they were farmers in the area, and Shields got their name after them, so that's kind of cool to know. Now, in the logging era, which was a big part of the history of Saginaw, our part on the Tittabawassee River, basically where we were was where the boom areas were, and then where the rafts flowed from up north when the logs got in the river. They were sorted in the boom area. Probably one of the biggest one is Bryant's Trip, which I believe is now where the Emmerman Park is. You can still see some of the remnants in the river in that area. So they would block the river off. They would sort the logs out. You can see all the guys on the logs, and I can't even imagine what it would be like to have that job. I don't think I could balance on a log in water, let alone use the hooks and everything to get the logs to go in the rafts. And then they would pin the rafts together, and this picture kind of shows that, how all the rafts would be pinned together, and then they would flow down the river. In our collection at the Nature Center, we have a few things. So there's a local guy, it's a cute story too, named Mike Slazinski. Now, Mike Slazinski, like years and years ago, has two sons, Robert and Steve. Steve owns Print Express in Shields, and Robert, I went to high school with Robert. So in 5th grade, we were in the same class, and we actually took a field trip. We walked from Shields Elementary to the basement of the Slazinski home, and he had a huge collection of Native American things, logging. He has multiple collections of like World War II memorabilia, like kids' cereal box things, all this kind of stuff. So I remembered that. So in 2020, when I got hired from Thomas Township, that was one of my first phone calls. Was like, "Hey, you might not remember me, but I know you have a pretty good collection, and he's in his 80s now, and he's like, yes, I'd love to have some of these things there. So he donated a lot of things, that we have quite a few of the log marks there. We have quite a few of the pegs that held the rafts together. And I know that they had wood pegs, and then they had metal pegs, and they decided that the wood pegs were better. Metal might be sturdier, but if you didn't get a metal peg out at the mills in Saginaw, then they went through the saw, then there goes your saw, and then you're down for repairs. The Nature Center, we do have a couple of pieces of wood trim that's kind of cute from houses, like a floorboard that has obviously made it through the process at the mills with the peg still partly in there, so that's kind of a cool thing to have. But I didn't bring that. You'll have to come to the Nature Center to see that. Also, things that were found in the river, this old harmonica, and we're going to just give it the history that it was found with the logging people, and there is that. So we have all kinds of things like that in there to talk about the history of the logging in our area. The maps that we have here, we have two from 1877 and one from 1896. And these maps were all found, and there's a red, white, and blue History of Thomas Township book. And the nice thing about this is I work for Thomas Township, and this was published by Thomas Township, so I can use anything I want in it, which is very exciting. But those maps were in there. So I put a little yellow star where the Nature Center is right now. And one thing that you might notice, if you're familiar with the property, is that the nature preserve in the back right now is an island, and right now it's not an island. And I'll tell you how that happened in a little bit, but you can see that this kind of flows south of the bridge and then connects to the river down here. And then these are just the Tittabawassee Boom Company, housed a lot of the men that work on the river. And in this is one of the boarding houses that they had here, which is very close to our property. And then they had script dollars that you could use in the store there to get things. So this is just some of that. A lot of the things that I learned about the logging history of our area was from Christy Furtaw, who works here. And then I did my first lunch and learn was one about logging a couple of years ago. So if you were there, I was there too. Now this one is just kind of, I love history and I love researching things and putting things together. So I had all these things in different spots, and I'm like, wait a minute, let's get this together. So this is the 1877 map with the Boom Company thing here. This was a picture taken in 1909. This is kind of like the beginning. If you imagine this picture over here, this is the whole row of the carriages waiting to go over the bridge for the first time. So in this picture, you can see the buildings. So if you count the buildings off and compare it to 1939, we have those possibilities of buildings. And then if you look at 1877, we also have these. So right now this says hotel, but I'm betting that had something to do with the Boom Company, which is pretty cool. None of these buildings exist anymore. There's one building in Shields that still remains from that time, or from close to those times, and that was, I think it was Peter's Gun Shop for a long time. It was God's Gifts Are Treasures, I think, and then Damagoski Photography is the latest. Back in the day when I was a kid, and I was in the gifted program, so we got special field trips. And one of our special field trips was to that building, and we went up to the second floor, and they explained that that's where a lot of the dances were, the social dances. But of course, back in those days, no air conditioning, second floor of a building way up there. I mean, it had to have been pretty hot and sweaty up there, but pretty cool just to appreciate the history of the area that we have there. All right, so another part of my digging here was noticing those maps. There was not, the canals were not there. So right now there's a canal that the Nature Center is actually built over, and then on the northern end of it, the preserve, there's another canal. So that makes the nature preserve an island. So this is like modern day, and like right here there's a canal, and right here there's a canal. So like, when did the canals get in there, and what was the purpose of them? So I think there are two different answers to things. So the northern is created by one owned property, and not sure about that one, but this one, when Gresham and there were multiple Gresham widenings in the 1950s. This is from 1959, so this is like past that, but this is also the site of where the current, well, I think it changed names now, Scott's Party Store was back in the day. Now I think it's Seams, but that was at that location in the background there, so I thought that was kind of cool because that was Gresham being widened. But if you look at this part of the map, there were 3 bridges that went over the Tittabawassee River. And if you make this be a canal right here, then you have one less bridge. So if you can picture heading into the Shields area, there's that really big blue water tower thing right here. The water that used to flow here, and then we cut it off and made it flow there. So then that made this be an island. Now another thing that I'm bringing back to be cool is the label Kavanaugh Lake. So when I first got hired by Thomas Township, one of the first people that got a hold of me was a local guy named Phil Moon. And Phil has so much information about the history of the area and everything. And he mentioned that the backwater was called Kavanaugh Lake. And I'm a local girl, I'm, born and raised in Shields, and I had never heard of Kavanaugh Lake before. And I'm like, really Kavanaugh Lake? And I looked everywhere. I could not find any references to Kavanaugh Lake. And then I found this map. It was from 1939. And I'm like, yes, we have proof, documented proof that this is Kavanaugh Lake. So it's a bit different now, and I'll get to that in a second. But this is when the canals appeared to turn the nature preserve into an island. So it is kind of sort of still there. Like this is modern, I'll tell you right now. So this is, you can't really tell because the water all looks green. If it was blue, you'd be able to see it better. But this is the Tittabawassee River. This is a canal, this is a canal, and this is all water here. And then you can see there's like a couple of things here that changed that. So these little land masses are like in here. And we believe that when the golf course was created, when Hidden Hollow Golf Course was created, they were trying to do like a hit over the water to a hole here and then have it continue, and it didn't exactly pan out, but they did fill some dirt in there. So it is still there. We have a lot of turtles back there, a lot of fish. We also have a heron rookery back here, which is really cool. There's about 50 nests out there, and right now it's heron baby season, and it's super fun because they sound like baby dinosaurs. It is awesome. It is awesome. And this is just with my digging in history thing. This was the Saginaw News article that explains that William Nagel had the channel dredged from the north, and then how this canal was put in there as well. So this is just an article. This was kind of cute. There was like a back and forth between multiple people that had opinions about Kavanaugh Lake being a lake. The theory is that it originally was the flow of where the Tittabawassee River was, that at some point the Tittabawassee hopped over here, as rivers do. So that was the basic idea. But so these people that grew up in Shields were very pro Kavanaugh Lake is a lake, because the debate was, are there natural lakes in Saginaw County? And then some lady not from the area was like, it is not a lake because it is connected to another body of water. But so it was a pretty big scandal, I think, back in the day. Not sure, but we're bringing back the Kavanaugh Lake label for sure. All right, now we're getting to the Hidden Hollow years. So, as things go, it's always interesting to get caught up in the connections that you have. So, when I first started working for Thomas Township and putting things together, I was talking to one of my friends, Jody, and Jody's like, that Chuck Bray is the guy that developed that. And I'm like, I've heard of it, but I'm not sure. So Chuck's daughter, Colleen, was a former co-worker of mine when I taught. I worked at Swan Valley Middle School for a while and then moved up to the high school. So Colleen and I had rooms next door to each other, never knowing what the future had in store for us. So I contacted Colleen and got a bunch of information about Hidden Hollow from her, as well as multiple sources. So the first picture was the building on the outside after it was completed, and that's kind of cute. That was from an old Shields Junior High yearbook that we had. So that was an ad in there. Now this is the only picture that I have, like picture of people that I know at there, and that is Colleen and her sister Kathleen. And in 2022, we had our observation deck build in a volunteer day, and Colleen's son and Colleen and her husband own Maple Grill out in Hemlock. So they provided lunch for us for a day, and so Colleen and Kathleen were there. They also helped paint in the basement. So we're like, we have to do a reenactment of the pictures. So those are the same girls, like a bunch of years later. And then this picture is a picture of from the back, so you can see the original walkway is there. They do have a couple of canoes in the water, and then this is as things just got developed, so the landscaping isn't quite there yet. This picture is pretty interesting. So Chuck developed Hidden Hollow, and he had the golf course and he had the restaurant, and they were all kind of one thing: restaurant, lounge, golf course. And then things got a little bit crazy in the restaurant lounge part, And I know some of you might have actually been there back in the 70s. I think there was a streak of people, and you don't have to admit if you're in this group, that could drink alcohol when you're 18 and then went crazy and had a ball, maybe a couple. And it seems like that happened at Hidden Hollow. So Chuck had young kids at home, and he's trying to run a golf course, and he's running this, and it was just too much. So he separated the businesses and sold the restaurant part to some people, and they developed that, became more of like the night scene then. And Chuck needed access to the golf course then because he had sold the building. So he developed a pedestrian bridge right there that people could get to, and then this little chalet was on the berm in the golf course, and then people could have access to the golf course from there. That little chalet ended up being moved, and it is now at the end of Wallace Drive. So the little chalet still exists, and it's still there, just in a different position. And this picture made the Saginaw News because of the flooding in the area, which is common and which happens quite a bit. So it was the flooding, and that is water kind of by where the bridge was. So there's that, and then Hunan was a big group there, and Jim Tyson, one of our local favorites, was in that band. And then Amphigas was another really big popular band back in the day at Hidden Hollow, and that was cute. Fred Bingham, one of the guys in the band, came in a couple months ago now, and they actually recorded the songs that they played at Hidden Hollow, and they actually have the name Hidden Hollow on the CD. And I'm like, what a treasure that is. So that is great. They also used to have snowmobile races in the preserve because it's in the golf course area. It was a big circle, and there were berms. It had been bermed around, so you could kind of go up on the berms. They brought in lighting. It was a pretty happening place. And then the biggest treasure of all, this golf ball. So this is a cute story. I actually make it out into the preserve quite a bit, and all these golf balls are golf balls that I have found while walking out there. So here's my little golf ball collection. And about maybe a month ago, we're working on getting the preserve area planted and getting some grass trails planted. So I was walking out there with a guy from Stravinsky Sod Service who was doing the planting work for us. So he said, do you ever find arrowheads out here? And I'm like, no, but I'm good at golf balls. And I'm like, that's what I always do. I aim for golf balls. So I found one right after that, and it was a Nike ball, which led me to believe that it had not been there since the 1970s. But then I found another part of one, and then the next one that I picked up, I saw the property of, and I'm like, I wonder if I know who this person is. And I flipped it over, and I could see the name Chuck, and I thought maybe Chuck Reeder, because he was a very good golfer back in the day. So I started cleaning the name off, and it said Bray. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like Chuck Bray, like the guy that created this whole place. And the guy from Stravinsky was like, oh, yay, great. And like, I'm grinning, and I can't stop smiling, and I just keep on talking about this golf ball. And after a few minutes, he's like, okay, okay, calm down about the golf ball. But I think it's the coolest thing ever. So there's that. And then another lady came in and had one picture of the golf course from when I think her dad was an investor, so we have that too. So this is the Hidden Hollow year history. I also found a collection, and I think it's in one of the framed things here. I went to, do you guys remember the Saginaw News had the Metro log? And you guys could like look on the recent crimes that had occurred. So I went through the Saginaw News archives, and I found anything that mentioned Hidden Hollow and kind of put them all together. So back in those days, there were some crimes that happened. A lot of them were breaking and entering, a lot of fights. I did redact the name of a guy that got beat up just in case he came to the Nature Center, and I didn't want him to feel bad about that all these years later. But it was an interesting story. Chuck, and one thing that happened that had Chuck want to separate the businesses too was there's an armed robbery, and there's a little basement in the Nature Center. The building is built over water, but like from one post, like this way, it's like maybe 14 feet wide. There's a basement area. And the people that were robbing the place made the employees and Chuck go in the basement, locked them in there, and robbed the place. It was by gunpoint. So like, all right, this is enough of that. We're going to separate. I'm going to stay alive for my kids. So there's that history as well. So there is that. So this slide is super boring because this is a whole super boring scam of the time that I really don't have much information about. So I know from the 1980s past the heyday of Hidden Hollow, the building was a heritage insurance agency for a long time. And then the golf course just went away and it was a field. So everything was just kind of allowed to grow in here. This would be like if you were standing in the east of the preserve looking west. There used to be a power pole in there. Wallace Drive is like right over there, so that would be like in the back Kavanaugh Lake area. But it was just all overgrown, and that's where it was for the longest time until 2003. In 2003, State Street was widened. They did some work on it, and the road commission thought they would need a compensating land for the area that they were taking over to stretch the road. So they purchased the preserve area, the area behind Heritage Insurance Agency, and they didn't need to keep it as a compensating cut. So they had this land that they didn't need, and they offered it to Thomas Township because it's in Thomas Township. So Thomas Township did some preliminary, like, yeah, we'll take it, it makes sense. And then, the thought was, do we turn it into a park? Do we, what do we do with it? And they had the same issue that Chuck Bray had once he sold it. There's really no access for the public to use it. So I think a thought was maybe possibly bring back a pedestrian bridge and things along those lines. But it was in the planning process. And as we know, the area is in the floodplain, so that's also a concern. You don't want to do anything too much where the golf course was because it's going to flood. So in about 2016, things start pulling up steam. So Thomas Township was looking for some way anyway to connect it. I mentioned the pedestrian bridge. So on this original plan, the pedestrian bridge is on it. I think that priced out to almost $1 million from what I heard. So that was like, okay, plan B, that's not going to work. That's a little bit. And then this plan is not, I think besides the circle, there's pretty much nothing from the original plan that is going to take place. But what happened that kind of got the process going a little bit more is during this time, there was some not legislation, but things going on with Dow, with the cleanup that they needed to do. So this is the Natural Resources Damage Assessment and Restoration Projects map. So Dow, as part of their settlement with cleaning up the Tittabawassee River, had a bunch of different things that they would be responsible for cleaning up, and then other places could apply and get funds, and then they could have their areas cleaned up and get some funds for that too. So if you see here we are, Thomas Township Nature Center and Preserve. We are a restoration project for them. And as part of that settlement, we got $1 million to restore habitat in the nature preserve. I shouldn't say we got it. We are slotted to get. We got some of it, but you know how that goes. It'll get there. So the plan that we then were working on was kind of coming up with how we could use those funds to get the habitat restoration going. So there was that. So this is kind of, we're going to be a part of that, and I think this started in the late 1990s and was finally settled in 2020. So that was a very long time to kind of wait for the funding to come through. So once Thomas Township knew that that was going to happen for sure, we still have that issue for the accessibility. When presto magico, a miracle occurred, and the Heritage Insurance Agency, every time I say it worse than I did the time before. The Heritage Insurance Agency building came for sale, and then the idea of now we have access, so we're going to have the Nature Center and Preserve concept in there as well. So now if you look at the building as it was when we got it and look at the building now, probably the biggest thing that is different, when Hidden Hollow was Hidden Hollow, this part was not there, and this was where the walkway was over here. And then when Heritage Insurance Agency expanded it, we decided to bring the walkway back. So that was a big thing. So this is what the walkway looked like originally. It's not a walkway. So there was that. And then 2020 is about when I came into the scene, and that's where the hard work begins. So now we have a nature center, we have a preserve, you have a retired teacher that sent in a job application, so now we need to get these things going. In 2018 to purchase the building, Thomas Township did get a DNR Trust Fund grant to help purchase the building. And then before I joined, they had gotten a DNR Land and Water Conservation Fund grant to also fund some work that would be going on there. So this is the building. This is May maybe 19th of 2020, and we all know what happened around that time, right? The big flood. So you can see the water it's going up almost all the way to the building, but it has never gotten in. It didn't get in '86, it didn't get into 2020, and it hasn't gotten in yet. Knock on wood, hopefully that never happens. And then this is what the building looked like on the inside. When it was Heritage Insurance Agency, we did the demo work and there were 18 doors. So if you can picture how divided the building was at that point. We saved 4 of them and we were using them, but there were 18 doors that were in there. And it had the lovely mauve and the beautiful wallpaper and all that good stuff on there. So demo happened pretty quickly. That is me. I carved up the trails with my 10-inch Ryobi chainsaw and my loppers. I feel like the little Tim the Toolman Taylor when I was doing that kind of stuff. And then the building was demoed, and then we had to get to some restoration in there. And that's just a pretty picture. This is actually one of the back areas, and these are where the heron nests are too. So I love that picture. So there's that. When the flood happened in 2020, in the basement area, there was a window that blew in, and I think under the stairs some water came in too, so that basement area flooded, and that's where heating, air conditioning, and electricity was, so they had to be moved up to the main level. So a lot of work to be done there. So the first part of the job that I mentioned was the fundraising part and the grant writing part. So I know it's kind of small print, but you can kind of see with all the different grants we've gotten an additional 2021 trust fund grant from the DNR, and that work is going to be starting any minute now. From the NERDA settlement, there's some initial funds that are coming from there, and the Saginaw Community Foundation, Harvey Randall Wicks, the William McNally Family Foundation, Morley Family Foundation, Holy Spirit, the Strosacker Foundation, the Anderson Foundation, Herbert and Grace A. Dow Foundation, Thomas Township Parks, the Jury Foundation, Thomas Township Business Association, Consumers Energy, Rotary Club of Saginaw Valley, Hemlock Semiconductor, the Business Association again, and then we got some funds from the Saginaw County ARPA disbursement, and then the Altrusa and Rotary Club just had a spelling bee in May, and their funds are going to get us a little lending library and some books too. So a lot of funds have been raised. I think that was one of the questions that you had at the beginning with how funding has been generated. And we have a lot of funds in place to do what we need to do, and we still have some funds left to add some more amenities and things that we are going to do. So this was a big grant that we had. The building was damaged on the west side during the flood, so this was kind of fun. I never realized how much permitting you need to do for certain things. So when I first started, there was a hike, and on this hike there was me, there's a couple of people from Thomas Township, DNR, somebody from EGLE, which used to be the DEQ, somebody from the EPA, and then somebody from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And as we're walking around talking about, we would like to create this here, and we'd like to have a walkway here, and we'd like to have a boardwalk here, and we'd like to have trails here. And they're like, okay, well, that needs a permit. Well, would that be a voluntary wetland permit? Would that be and it's like, we can't just do what we want to do. So because we're in the floodway and floodplain, we have a lot of regulations that we have to follow, and that was a pretty steep learning curve. Some of my favorite things, the gate is designed to close up the walkway, and I know you can't see it from here, but I love squirrels, so the gate had to have a little squirrel on a little tree right there to represent my one true love. Okay, slightly exaggerating. And the inside of the building renovation, this is where the walkway became in again. Trees that I showed you earlier, and then corn was grown, and then the year before we tried to plant, we planted soybeans to have that happen. So a lot of work going on there. And then from 2022 to 2024 was the teamwork makes the dream work and the renovation thing. So we have an observation deck out on the preserve. It's about a half a mile out to get there, and then you can come back. And then we just have multiple pictures of people that have helped out. So we had some Swan Valley students, Shields and the Rotary Club of Saginaw Valley, and then additional Rotary volunteers as well. So it has definitely been a lot of people getting their hands in there to help us out. And this is kind of where we're at right now. So I absolutely love that picture. Just a nice dusky feeling of the building. It looks beautiful. So the ceiling, thank you. This is a funny, so we won an award at the Thomas Township Parks, no, it was the Michigan Parks, M Parks. So the guy from Bridgeport nominated us. We win this award. So I got to send in pictures of like here's before and here's after. So I sent in the picture of the blue building, and then I sent in that picture, a bunch of other pictures too. And like when they announced that we were these big award winners, they had the picture of the old blue building. We're like, we are great at design, aren't we? So that was kind of funny. But inside the building, there are multiple seating areas, so you can sit and be comfortable and look back out what's in the preserve. And we have a collection of different guidebooks. I have a nice section of Saginaw history books, which absolutely I love. And then we have like multiple areas. This is kind of set up. This is Christmas time, but we have like probably 8 little tables there for different programs that we like to run. This is the building with the walkway that you can see now. Compare that to the picture that we showed without the walkway. And then this is one of the display cases with a lot of stuff from Mike Slazinski. We have another one of those, Native American, and we're getting new ones too. This is just our crew on the deck celebrating after our ribbon cutting ceremony. And then we have a local artist, a guy named Eric Shantz. He's been around for a while, so you might have heard of Eric before. But I have this idea, this habitat area. I saw one at the Farmington Hills Nature Center. I'm like, I want a habitat area, so that would be super cool. So we had a guy, Jim Holm, was a hunter from Saginaw Township, and he had since passed. His son had a bunch of taxidermied animals to donate for us. And so we're like, all right, so we have this, we're all set, we need an artist. I sent it out to bid, and nobody responded. So I just kind of contacted a couple people that I sent the bid out to, like what was the stumbling block, and we were basically, the story was, is we were too big for an individual that would want to do it, and then we were too small for the people that do nature center things. Like one of the guys, he's like, not saying anything, but if your job isn't over $100,000, we're not touching it. So we were kind of in limbo. So last fall, the National Women's Farm and Garden Association, people that plant the daffodils, they planted some daffodils at the Nature Center, and it was a cold day, so they came inside to get warmed up, and I had a sign saying, I have this habitat vision, I want it to happen really bad. And Cinda Shantz, who was Eric's mother, was part of that organization, and she's like, my son could do that. And that's probably the 20th time that I've heard that somebody I know can do that. So I was a little skeptical at first, but I'm like, all right, gave me his information, like, holy cow, can he do that? So he has, and then some. So he created the habitat area here. He included a lot of the animals and then the native plants. He built the tree that was around one of the posts, the support posts that's in there, and then he painted a big heron. And I don't know if this picture even does it justice, but this is probably a 6-foot tall window. It's absolutely huge. And then he also right now has painted kind of a map of the Nature Center preserve and then the area around it. And then he's following the river, and all down the east side of the wall, he's painted like the Tittawassee River watershed. So that's really cool. He's finishing that up right now, but I didn't put a picture in there because you'll have to come see it. Sort that way. And then these pictures to me are just funny because the first time the toilet flushed was amazing because I had been working there for a couple of years by that time, and now I have a flushing toilet. Life is good. And then this one is funny too. This is the spigot out in the back. And it was difficult to get a water line to run from the front to the back where the water was. You can't do it on the exterior because it's going to freeze. So they actually had to build a little thing for that thing right there that it looks just like it's a piece of trim, but it actually comes out a little bit. So I can have a spigot for my back and water plants out there. So very excited about that. And then this is what we're looking at right now in the preserve. So we had such a struggle last year with trying to plant. We had a drought last year, and then I don't even know the whole story, but it was stressful. So this year we have out, and what they do is they did an elevation test, and then we have a mix of like native grasses and pollinator flowers. And so that's kind of what they've done on the other restoration areas. It should look like a prairie basically when it's done. And then do a cover crop of oats, which are annuals. So they will grow up, give the natives a plant to come up, and that kind of helps weeds kind of not come up. And then we hired Chippewa Nature Center to come once a month to kind of survey what's going on and to give us any advice if something is popping up that isn't, or we're struggling in this area, or you need to do that. So it's been definitely a super, super big, huge help. So what we have been doing now that we are open, so our grand opening was last August, and then we were open September, October, and November we started running programs. So some of the programs that we have On Tuesdays, we call it Fun, which is Families United in Nature. We have one tonight. We based it on a theme. So tonight's theme is Life is Beautiful and Father's Day. So we have a craft for Father's Day, and then some different things that should end up being beautiful, like making stained glass out of tissue paper and things along those lines. On Wednesdays, we've been struggling. We have a senior citizens luncheon the first Wednesday of every month, but not in the summer months. And when we opened the Nature Center, we moved the lunches there, and they love the facility. So we're like, well, why don't you guys come back every Wednesday? And I think that was too much of a commitment. And then, so now we just kind of opened up to adults of all ages can come in and hang out. We have a group from Community Mental Health that usually comes a couple times a month, and that's been fun to have. And then Thursdays, we have our little Acorns preschool group, and this is probably one of my favorite pictures of them, and I have to shout out that this is River, and River's grandma Frances is back there, so we got to say hello to them. And then we're open the first Saturday of every month. We have Family Fun Days, and there's that. The Nature Center itself is open from 3 to 7 on Tuesdays, and then 12 to 4 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you can stop in then. We kept Mondays open, and then the mornings open for field trips during the school year. So last Monday, we had all of the fourth graders from Havens Elementary come and do a science day. So that's been fun. And that picture is from that. We had some middle schoolers come out and they were doing bird watching. They're holding the little bird watching things. And then this is just one of the crafts that we've made. This is also our little Acorns group, and they made butterflies, and they were flying around, and it was super cute. So I usually have a calendar for the month, and then I put out like a weekly what's going on, and Lunch and Learn at the Castle is right there, so here we are. And these are available on Facebook and then on the Thomas Township website, and then I put them in the township office, the library, and at the Nature Center too. So there is that.
Look on Facebook page, just look up this title right here.
It's Thomas Township Nature Center and Preserve. Yep. Yep. And what's next? We obviously want to keep building programs and doing field trips and having some fundraisers and looking for anything we can have to enhance the experience. This is going to be one of those little learning libraries. That's what that spelling bee is funding. And then a couple other things, the Deer at the Zoo, we're going to be there for that. And we're going to be at the Farmers Market Family Fun Night there as well. So that's kind of what we have going on for that. And then what is next in the Nature Preserve, I explained the planting areas, and then we have the trails that will be going in, grass all in the interior, because if we did gravel or anything, we know it won't go all over. Right now we have a gravel trail right here, and then where the green is, we have a grant that is going to get gravel there this summer. We're going to have a fishing platform built here, a picnic pavilion there, and a kayak launch is supposed to be going in this week. They said the week of June 10th, so any minute now we're going to have a kayak launch. And it's kind of a little bit of a challenge. There's a bank, so we have rollers down there to get your kayaks down. And then a lot of people that do the kayaking, you can put in Freeland in a couple of spots, Immerman, the South Center Road Bridge, so there's plenty of opportunities to make a little trip there. We have, in our front area, we have plans to get that to be a little bit more fancy. We're planning on a storybook trail and an outdoor classroom and outdoor play areas, little bug hotel. And then this area will be more for, we'll be calling it our Serenity Garden, so more grasses, more benches, rocks, kind of places to sit and be calm in nature. And we have the funds for that. Basically what we're waiting for that is for the plants to grow enough and then the trail to grow enough so that we can then get our things established as we go. We're going to have plenty of interpretive signs out there. There's a fishing platform, and there is what the dock is going to, the kayak launch is going to look like. And these are just some lovely, all of these pictures were taken at the Nature Preserve. So this is one thing that's kind of fun. The herons, we have the heron rookery back there. So the heron actually, like, they stand and they sit on their nests way, way high up in the trees. So we have the trail blocked off for right now because it's baby season, but they literally sit in their nests. So if you come out in the winter or in the spring when the leaves are not in yet, you can see all the nests back there, which is pretty cool. And then this is one of the soft-shelled turtles. There's the Native American legend about the turtle with the earth on its back, talking about the creation of earth. And this is the turtle that just came out from hibernation, and he had some earth on his back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to teach that story, now I'm seeing it for myself. And then these were just taken all along the property too. Little painted turtle, and there we go. And I think we're good for what I was planning on saying. If we have questions, I'd love to
There's
answer.
time for questions if
All
anybody.
right.
Okay.
Yes,
How many acres do you actually own out there?
that is such a good question. 60. So the preserve is 67. Where the building is, there's 5. And then if you go down North River Road, and there's mission, it used to be a mission down Holy Spirit Church. There's a wooded lot there that kind of connects to past the Northern Canal. There's 13 acres that we own there as well that we're not going to be developing for a long time yet. Whoever comes after me can take care of that part. And it's like almost 90 acres altogether in the property. Yes, we're also building a storage facility there too, so I can get my watering equipment there. Yeah. Yes.
Where do you get your monetary support for?
So I had the one screen a few bit.
Now and going on.
So everything that we want to do that is amenities and such and programs. We have a grant for programs, so every program that we run, we do free of charge. That's a Hemlock Semiconductor one. But the operational funds are budgeted for through Thomas Township. And right now, it's basically just keeping the building open and me. I'm the only employee there. And so our goal is to obviously, try to build that up. And we do have a couple of things. We have a Saginaw Community Foundation account. I don't know how to explain that. We get the interest off. That helps offset that too. So pretty much, yeah, we're pretty good.
I hate to see something so wonderful start and then not.
Right,
not
right.
kept going.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Have that same piece of land go back like it's been forever.
Well, and that's a good thing too. So the $1 million, the natural resources damage assessment, those funds, so as part of that, like I think there's a certain amount, and I don't know if it's going to change, that is allocated for 20 years of maintenance in the preserve. So that will be for sure. I think it'd be the building that we have to make sure we keep the funds for that.
Walking trails. Are there walking trails right now that we could?
Let me see if I can get back, and I'll show you.
Right now I go to Chippewa to walk, but now I saw something about Rescue. Do they have trails to walk?
Yes, so Rethke has trails. Rethke has, like, if you go into Rethke and you're kind of by the pond, there's a couple of spots. There are big maps, so to kind of show you the different loops on there. Probably the biggest difference between Rethke and us is they're a park, we're a preserve, so we don't allow dogs. So if you're going to bring a dog, then you'd go to Rethke.
Chippewa has signs all over. No dogs, no smoking, no bites.
Yeah.
The other day I saw some guy riding right by me. I said, I didn't think those were approved here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and right now it's kind of funny because we have the gravel right here, and then where it is mowed, it is a little bit bumpy. So it's almost like, try to take a bike out. See how that works out for you. But trail-wise now, so this is gravel. So anything that is funded by the DNR has to be ADA accessible, which is a good thing to have. So that's why this is gravel. And when I first heard about the gravel, my mind was some of those gravel trails that you walk on that are like super, super like bumpy, and it's like, how is this any more accessible? Like dirt would be easier to go on than this. But what they do is they have, I believe it's a layer of sand, and then a soft layer of gravel, and then they put on like kind of a thicker one, and then they put like dust almost over the top, so that the thought is that eventually the dust will harden, and it has. So like walking out there is not very, very challenging at all. So the grant that's going to get started this summer will be gravel from here down to here, and then from here up to where that breach in the berm is kind of by the herons. Our goal is to bridge this as well, and we're looking at doing that. If we can get the permit, that's what's going to happen. It will be blocked off during baby season, so there's that. And then these trails in here have been planted, and those are just going to be grass trails because of the flooding. We know if we did gravel or wood chips, they'd get washed away, and then that would make things hard to plant and gather them back together. So those are actually in there. And this one is kind of cute too. So the guy that I was talking to and found the golf ball, he's like, so you want this to be a straight line? And I'm like, well, not really a straight line. Like, feel free to meander. And then, you come in and he's done and you see that, like he meandered pretty good, which is cool because it'll make the trail a lot more fun when you're going. But so it's not quite exactly as straight as it is. And then our shorebird area where that breach in the berm comes in, this tends to hold water, and we're kind of hoping that it does. When we first started, I had a bird guy come and do a bird survey, and the first survey that he did was in June, and he saw like almost 50 species of birds, and then he came during migration in the fall, and it was up to the 80s. So one of my goals is to become a birder. The first time he came by himself, and he was a very good teacher, telling me everything and showing me all this stuff. And the second time he came, he brought one of his birding buddies. And I used to teach Spanish, and I'm used to foreign languages, and like their birding language was like a foreign language to, I'm trying to find the bird in the binoculars, and I'm still at that phase. And they're like, is the chest more gray-white or more white-gray? And I'm like, I can't even find the bird. So my goal is to become a little better at that. But so, yeah. Any other questions?
I'm still kind of confused with the flooding.
Yes.
That's something you're going to have to put up with,
Mm-hmm.
which will
Yeah.
close it down for a period of time.
It could
whenever that happens.
in the springs, yep. And so where the breach in the berm is, water can get in. Now, because we're floodplain and we're floodway, just like with the road commission, if we try to do anything to cause less land to be in the floodway, we'd have to make a compensating cut. And the preserve itself is 67 acres. So it's like we cannot block it off and then compensate for that property that would be lost. So with every intention of having things in that area that are tolerable to flooding, like every plant should be tolerable in the floodplain. The seed mix tolerable in the floodplain. The Servinsky sod service with what they're doing, everything should be floodplain tolerable. It's like if we flood and like things are underground for like weeks and weeks and weeks, that.
You're not losing what you're putting in.
Right. And then we have the funds and the maintenance to put things back in. I should mention that north end too, we just had 37 trees planted. So our eventual goal for that would be our floodplain forest, would be that north end. So our goal when we're planting things and having this close to the building, the thought is because we're nature preserve, the more people will be down here, and the further out you go, the more wild it will become and the less, human influences out there. So, yeah. Wow, I still probably have a good hour in me. Just kidding.
It was fascinating. I'm so excited about this project and that it's part of our community, and thank you for sharing. I hope you all enjoy it and support it. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, and we had some.
Oh.